Performance is, by definition, an entirely different monster than training. I would love to assume you already know that, but it's still worth saying. Worth it because, for some reason, more and more often, I hear training principles start to appear in the performance environment. Worse, they're often misunderstood, misinterpreted training principles.
I'm not going to try it again because you should only really try hard things when fresh. I'm a little tired, so I'll wait until next week to maximize my skill adaptation potential.
Volume isn't good for building tendon strength, so I'm going to cut it short today. I've done 27 moves. That's over my threshold already.
Look, I'm not going to do any climbing during my warm-ups. I've got a flashboard, so I'll be able to get my fingers recruited optimally that way, and all of those easier climbs are just junk mileage.
I gave it my best effort, but based on my single attempt, it's clear the rate of force development in my finger flexors is a shade too slow, so I'll be going back into the gym for a few months before I try this one again.
Is this you? Is this what you're doing? Well, right now, what you're doing is listening to Taped Tips from Power Company Climbing. Let's get into it.
It's time to build.
Training is hot right now. The terminology makes you seem smart, even if only to yourself. And I mean, self-worth goes a long way, so keep doing it. And particularly nowadays, everyone seems to be training and talking about training. And don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking it. I make my living from it, and I enjoy it as much as I enjoy climbing. But too much of a good thing is, well, too much. And here's the important thing. If you can learn to keep your training and your performance separate, then both are going to improve. So let me ask you this. What is it that you're training for? Are you training to be able to train harder? God, I hope not. I hope that you're training to be able to perform better. Sure, training harder is a byproduct of that, but it's not the goal. So in that rare, precious instance when you've gotten all of your work done, the babysitter has shown up, and you finally found yourself in the performance space. Whether that's sport climbing, bouldering, big walls, some greasy moonboard tucked away in some humid garage, or the new set in the climbing gym. Let the training you've done speak for itself, and stop forcing it into the performance. Just go climbing. Try hard. All bets should be off. You should be giving every possible effort that you can. Tying in again, even as the sun is dropping below the horizon or the angsty teenage desk employee has turned off the emo music and shut off the lights. Yes, even if your coordination is fatigued and the proj is a technical test piece. Nobody ever shouted "A muerte" and meant it during training. A muerte is for you right now trying to get this thing done. I know you're tired. Me too. I'm tired of pointing out that your strength metrics have tripled, but you're still climbing the same grade. I'm tired of people bastardizing climbing in the name of training. I love them both nearly equally, but they're separate things. And like I said, you'll get more out of both if you can keep them that way. It might help to try to develop two different mindsets. Let's look at it like this. In training, you're a scientist. Your goal is to utilize theory, research, and experience to optimize learning, building, and progression. But when you're standing in front of the proj, you're an athlete, a performer. LeBron James, Serena Williams, Tom Brady, Sha'Carri Richardson, Michael Phelps, Eliud Kipchoge. You are there to do whatever it takes to succeed. See, training or practice is the pursuit of failure. The entire goal is to find the thing that is just too hard and to figure out how to systematically improve in a way that can be adapted across a range of situations, and then immediately make it a little harder or more complex so that you can keep improving. But performance is the pursuit of success. The goal is to send. Sure, maybe just barely, but to send regardless. During performance, you can throw out the rules. Discard the idea of being able to adapt your solutions across a range of situations. You want to succeed in the here and now, no matter if it seems entirely novel or not. You're there to do the move, clip the chains, top out the boulder.
It's time to build.
Let's take a look at a couple of the common examples where both coaches and climbers are going wrong and failing to connect the dots here. Number one, and maybe the one I'm most surprised by, is the proliferation of warming up by only pulling on a flashboard or tension block or finger of fury baby boss or whatever. Those are great tools, don't get that twisted, but very specific tools. It's really only preparing your fingers, which it's really good at. And if fingers were the only thing that mattered, well, a lot of you would be sending harder climbs. But you're not, because it all matters. Hips, shoulders, core, mindset, effort levels, all of it. And the best way to get those things prepared is to do easier climbs. Probably more than one easier climb. In fact, I'd argue that doing other climbs is a better way to get your hands ready to do more than just hold a flat edge, and that maybe thinking of these no-hang devices as a final way to get your fingers ready to try really hard is the better way. Yes, I've heard the skin argument too, and no, I don't really buy it unless you're fourth day on and your skin is already wrecked, in which case you should maybe just be resting. Unless it's the last day, and then throw out all the rules. A muerte. And to be honest, if you can't control your climbing well enough to not destroy your skin on the warm-ups, well, it's likely you're falling off of the project for reasons other than your fingers not being recruited enough. And all of that doesn't even take into account that unless you're already an expert climber, all of those warm-up climbs are a great place to gain and solidify skills. If all you ever do is get your fingers recruited on your board and then climb on your project, you're not going to gain the adaptability and comfort on unknown terrain that makes good climbers good. So if you still have a lot to learn, do more climbs. And then finish your finger warm-up with the board. And if you're an expert climber already, do what works for you. But be honest with yourself. The numbers alone don't necessarily determine who's an expert. Maybe judge it like this. If you aren't doing that V4 or V5 or whatever number warm-up because you're afraid you might fall off of it, then you probably really need to do that warm-up.
It's time to build.
And that brings us to number 2, which is probably the one I most strongly disagree with. Junk mileage. I once heard a climbing coach say that working on links on his project was junk mileage. That's absurd. That guy needs some more junk mileage. Period. A lot of it. Put simply, sure, there comes a time when you don't really need much volume because it's not going to move you toward your goals, and many of us love those enduro challenges a little too much. But there are so many benefits to regularly climbing volume in a way that challenges you that it doesn't make much sense to discard it. You can recover better between efforts. You can handle more climbs in a day without going downhill. You can do more moves in a row. You get more time applying skills in various scenarios. And you get to climb more. In moderation, there's just no downside. But all of that is actually beside the point. The point is, that was his project. It wasn't training. I mean, Imagine a dancer saying that they don't want to try to get the middle of the routine just right because it's junk mileage. Instead, they'll just keep getting stronger and then their routine will magically just get better. It's ridiculous. Keep your training principles, especially the misunderstood, taken out of context principles that lack nuance, out of performance. I know the lines can get blurry. Inherently, they are. So ultimately, what it comes down to is you and your intention. So ask yourself, what is it that you're training for?
This time to build.